Good morning, everybody.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, Wade.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, or actually good afternoon.
Yeah, right.
True. 2 minutes into the afternoon.
A white mom's quest to understand. I'm John Cooley from the Los Angeles Times, narrated by me.
Frank Williams, of the two committees that we have, earlier, Patrick is on.
And Lorena,
No, actually Katrina's not on. So,
the Patrick first.
we could. It's
I wonder
just,
if Katrina didn't say she wasn't coming.
no, she did not.
So I wonder if Nada would be able to give it if she doesn't. Should I ask Nada?
So maybe she knows.
Nada, have you heard from Lorraine?
Katrina?
Katrina?
There's a chance she might be on her way to a funeral today. She told us yesterday.
Yeah, she may not be able to be on a call today. She has actually has notes about some of our recommendations. She didn't put on into that form yet, but so I'm not sure if she's gonna be able to present today.
Does somebody else in the committee have the information?
Yeah. I mean, Nada and I have it, but we don't have the form exactly, but we can speak on it.
Okay, that'll work. Good afternoon, everyone. So today we're gonna listen to the final two subcommittees and their preliminary recommendations. So Patrick, Shelley, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Patrick.
Hi, Patrick.
All right, so I had the pleasure of working with Rosemarie, Harriet, Kim, and Captain Brian. We are the subcommittee on training and equipment. So even though those things are somewhat connected, as we've been talking about, many of these topics are connected. They're also very different. So I'm going to share with you a screen. Let me know if this is okay for size on your tablet or desktop. Okay.
Looks good.
It looks good.
All right, so just we wanted to start out with two kind of key topics that I've had a chance to speak with some other subcommittees and people doing police reform work throughout the county as well. And one thing that we really want to make sure that we're including when we're talking about training topics specifically is that these changes and recommendations are congruent with policy and procedure recommendations. Because if it's embedded in policy and procedures, then this is something that can be continuous and ongoing. Like Wade had mentioned, we would like to have this be a continuous process. And the more congruent recommendations that we have that reflect each other will be appropriate. And we're hoping that, when people see that these things need to be interconnected, they'll see how important it is to make the change. One of our things that we did speak about is analysis of data collected by White Plains PD. We think that it's really important to analyze data involving stops around people with mental health or disabilities. And as a part of this annual analysis of if things are working within the police department, we feel that the data collected and analyzed by White Plains PD and community partners or the reform committee should be the driving factor to make adjustments or changes to training curriculum. So let's just say if we see that there's an increase in stops or increase of involvement of calls to the 911 center around mental health and disabilities, that there may be some adjustments needed to these trainings. So that's just kind of like our preliminary two things that we wanted to propose to the committee and that are going to be a part of our recommendation. Now we're going to get into some of the training topics. So addressing systemic racism in the police department. As you know, per Governor Cuomo's executive order, this is one of the #1 topics that he addresses. Currently, we analyze the White Plains Police Department's current curriculum, which is their bias training, fair and impartial policing. It was taken from the Camden Police Department and utilized here in White Plains. We feel that the curriculum does have some positive aspects to the training. However, we want to recommend that the White Plains Police Department implement the Undoing Racism workshop through the People's Institute of Survival and Beyond. This is a very comprehensive workshop that actually goes into the history of racism as well. The principles that are taught throughout this workshop are excellent. They're great for leadership, and they're great for people that are, hands-on in the field doing work with civilians. There's a link that I'm going to provide in this, and we could share this document with everyone on the committee because we made it interactive where you can click on links to see access information about trainings or other things that we have recommendations on here. And just to be transparent, we're still working on like the time and occurrence of what we would propose this training would be. A lot of our trainings are going to be proposed to be 2 times a year instead of a 1-year in-service training. And we're going to go off of Stanford CT. Their police department did do a Undoing Racism workshop, and it was reported that it went very well. And they were able to make time within their schedule to do the full workshop. Any questions on the Undoing Racism workshop?
Patrick, this is Jim Spencer. Good afternoon. I just want to know, how is this a train-the-trainer thing that we could have our police instructors learn and then provide to the entire department? Or is there an outside agency to come in to do it? And how long is the training? Is it 1 day, 2 days, hours? Can you go a little bit more into detail?
That's a good question. So Kim isn't on the call today, but Kim could definitely answer some more questions on, and we get some more information. There may be potential to do a train-the-trainer, but typically the workshop, when it's done in person, would be essentially around 2 full days and a short introduction on the third day. The first day is a short introduction and then 2 full days. like I said, we're going to follow up with Stanford and see what they did with their police department. And I can ask about the trainer. It might be something that is possible. I know Kim McNair, who's on our subcommittee, she is trained through the People's Institute. And she does some trainings with you as well.
Thank you, Patrick. And I also know some folks up in Stanford. I can reach out as well. Thank you.
Got it. So next we're going to go into addressing trauma in the police department trainings regarding civilians trauma and officers trauma. We want to be very clear here that when we talk about mental health and trauma, we're also talking about the trauma and mental health of police officers themselves. This is often something that can be overlooked. So we just want to be very clear in our recommendation. Currently, we found out that WJCS provided a trauma training in 2017 with Dr. Linda Nelson. We feel like that was great. WJCS is one of the leading agencies in Westchester training on trauma. But the fact that it was done 3 years ago is not good. This needs to be done yearly. This needs to be done, we would like to think, possibly ongoing 2 times a year. And we do feel that the trauma responsive or informed training needs to be focused on interactions with civilians, how you respond to someone, because we all have our own traumas when it comes down to it. And we recommend that this training specifically is provided by a mental health professional / agency like WJCS. There's a lot of people that practice trauma-informed therapeutic services throughout the whole county. There's WJCS, there's Mental Health Association of Westchester, there's Family Services of Westchester. There's a lot of people that the police department could partner with to instill these trainings within the police department. And having it be regular is one of our most important aspects of this training. Now, the reason why it's so important to talk about trauma when it comes to working with youth or adults or the aging population is because the way that people react to police is based on their own traumas. So they may not feel as comfortable with police as other communities may feel or as other people may feel. So that is what we recommend for working with civilians. When it comes to working with the trauma of officers, we are aware that there's an organization called Westchester Blue. They work on mental health support for officers with vicarious trauma. For those of you who don't know what vicarious trauma is the trauma that we experience in our day-to-day jobs or in our day-to-day actions or life. So this could be trauma based on race. This could be trauma based on, I'm a social worker, so it could be trauma that I take home from the cases that we work with here and working with youth with severe mental health challenges. It could be an officer that witnesses violence or that witnesses murder or severe situations and crises at their day-to-day job. So vicarious trauma is that trauma that we bring home that now becomes our trauma. What trainings does Westchester Blue do? What do they offer? If so, who facilitates it and what are their credentials? We have some questions for Westchester Blue, but we feel like Westchester Blue is a great thing to have, but having the mental health of the officers be something that is talked about, be something that there's a space to cope with the day-to-day trauma. It's not just instilling something in these recommendations and in policies and procedures, but it's also promoting a culture. And that's something that Rosemarie brought to our attention as a subcommittee, that when we make these recommendations, we also want to be recommending that White Plains PD promotes a culture. So when it comes to this, it's promoting a culture where you talk about personal trauma and how to cope with it. What do? You don't just hold it in and then lash out on someone you're working with that day or on a civilian. So that's one of our biggest things when it comes to this. We feel that we do need to work in conjunction with our qualification subcommittee as well, because we have been talking about mandating mental health support and mental health screening as part of the potential police officer licensure. or credentials that would be ongoing. And this would be more so in conjunction with Westchester County as well. So we feel that the screening and then the support should be things that are included in the qualifications. That you know, as soon as you sign up to become a police officer, that these are things that will be done regularly and monitored regularly. Do we have any questions on trauma when it comes to either working with civilians or with officers?
Hey, Patrick, this is Wade. I just want to say I totally agree that mental health of police officers should be a priority. Before 2020, actually 2019, I mentioned it before in another call that police suicide was the big story of 2019, and you know, it's something that police officers don't want to talk about. There's a stigma behind it, so making it a cultural norm may save, you know, some lives in law enforcement, not just the police officers' lives, but people they're close to. There was a situation where a retired White Plains cop, I'm sure you guys remember the story, shortly after he retired, you know, a terrible thing happened where he took his own life and the life of his, you know, his wife and, you know, some family members. But, you know, it's police mental health is a huge priority, should be a huge priority in this police reform. So, you know, I thank your group for, you know, bring that issue up.
Thank you. And addressing suicide is, you know, something that needs more attention across the board, and definitely involving police officers as well. And violence. I feel like, you know, a lot of times we're not always talking about violence. When you see violence repetitively, when you experience violence, that trauma is heavy. To take that home is very heavy. So we're excited to work with the PD and hopefully come up with some and strengthen what you have in place. Like I said, Westchester Blue sounds great, but we would like to learn a little bit more too about what they're doing and see where you can have some additional support from the community. People that do this and have therapeutic models that are very successful through NYU, trauma systems therapy is one that we would be recommending as well. That's something that WJCS uses as well. So after trauma, and just to be clear, it's very important that we separate trauma and mental health. Trauma, like I mentioned, is something that we all carry. It's something that we all experience, whether it's the people that like to say, okay, yeah, no, I'm fine. Everyone has a history. Everyone has things that shape their behaviors and their mental health. And then, so we're getting into mental health and disabilities and incorporating these into police trainings. Now, what I learned about police trainings at White Plains PD is that you guys talk about this a lot throughout all the trainings. And that's good. We know that in the county academy, you go through mental health training. There's in-service, regular training. You guys do your extensive medical training for if you're a ESU officer, and you even go through some more mental health discussions throughout that. And then in your community policing training as well, you talk about things like implicit bias, working with the LGBTQ community and disabled persons as well. So you guys are talking about it a lot throughout your trainings, which is great. But we had a couple of recommendations that we wanted to make. We wanted to recommend that when you do trainings, that you do trainings in a style that is a peer-led curriculum. Now, for those of you that might not understand what that means someone with mental health experience and lived experience would be a part of the training, delivering the training to police officers with other people as well. Now, what's helpful about that is really learning from someone hands-on what it's like for them to go through their day-to-day life. Peer-to-peer services in the mental health field are something that are very, that are being increased right now. They have been over the last years, but when you have a caregiver or even a young person that has lived experience, giving you their perspective, it's very, very helpful. So one of the things that we want to recommend is that you look into a peer-led curriculum. And again, these are trainings that could be provided in partnership with agencies like Family Ties, working, strengthening the relationship with Department of Community Mental Health, My Sister's Place, which focuses on DV, the Loft, Westchester Independent Living Center, and Family Services of Westchester. Again, we feel like it's imperative that you record data and track interactions with people with mental health disabilities. This could even be starting with a 911 call, and I'm going to get further into the 911 call center as well. We feel that it's very important that you assess the intersectionality of mental health disabilities and race and the interactions with police. So when you're collecting the data, we're specifically analyzing by race and by mental health disabilities. Now, what this will do and what this can do if you work on some of these recommendations and implementing them is it could reduce stigma and provide a more holistic and nurturing approach to working with the community. So instead of just the officer saying, oh, there goes, you know, that homeless person or that crazy person, using that kind of language that is hurtful, it reduces the stigma. That person has been through a lot. That person needs to be approached in a different way. We also have the overall goal of reducing incarceration of people with challenges. We see that, and we've talked about this as well, and I've talked about it at length with the leadership at White Plains PD, is that a lot of times the police department can take on the overflow of what other systems cannot meet the needs of, whether it's the youth system, whether it's the mental health system, but we don't want to incarcerate people with mental health challenges. So we just want to make that really clear. Over here, when we do send this out, there's some really good, interesting links to check out. There's a Buddhist priest who is former police officer, Sherry Maples, and she talks about mindfulness. And this YouTube video is really, really helpful to learn more about some things that we can do in implementing some mindfulness strategies with the White Plains PD as well. So those are some of our recommendations in working with mental health. Now, community policing. We've had a chance to learn a bit about community policing that we do, and we know that there's a small group of community police officers that work on foot or on bike. But we want to strengthen our community policing where all officers are actually trained in community policing. We want it to be that there's a rebuilding of trust with the community. When we first met with the mayor to talk to him about some of our concerns, this was one of our #1 things, building trust with the community. So if that could be adopted as more of a police department wide mentality, then I think that we could do a better job at repairing our relationship. We feel that having more people too that are from White Plains, and I think other committees have mentioned this, people that are actually from White Plains, grew up in White Plains, know the neighborhoods, have a real connection, would be really, really important to strengthening our community policing here. I also wanted to propose looking into this training called ABLE. This is through Georgetown Law. It's the Active Bystander for Law Enforcement training, and it's actually a free resource. This is something that they're doing for law enforcement agencies, and it's really working to commit and creating a culture of active bystandership and peer intervention through policy, training, support, and accountability. So I'm including a link here on that. And like I said, this is a free resource. And when we're talking about budget, I know that that's something that I hope you guys consider, because it's a free resource. It would be great to implement something like that and work with Georgetown Law. Now we wanted to make sure we included these topics in our recommendations. We feel like sometimes these things can be overlooked, so we wanted to be very clear. We're still working on what the formal recommendation will be, but we want to talk about addressing working with undocumented families in the police department trainings. We feel like working with an organization like Centro Hispano will help strengthen your ability to work with this part of our community. There is a lot of fear around interacting with the police when it comes to different communities that we have here in White Plains. And we want to promote a culture that treats individuals fairly under the eyes of the law, regardless of their legal status. So that's a group that we want to pay more attention to. And then also addressing working with the LGBTQ community in the police department trainings. Now, like I said, in the bias training, there was it was pretty surface level. I don't think that it goes in depth into conversations and working with the LGBTQ community. And for example, we talked about things like using pronouns, they, them, theirs, equal treatment of trans people. And this is really important because as we've seen, there have been many victims of police brutality throughout the whole country. And we know that, you know, in White Plains here, we have things like the Loft, we have resources here, but we want the police department to be promoting a culture that treats this community as equal as they treat everybody else. Now that it's something that we may have to work closely with other, you know, systems like the corrections department, but we want to see the fair treatment of trans people when it comes to detaining, holding, or incarcerating. And addressing this, you know, like I said, with other systems will be really, really important. So what we do is what we can do here in White Plains, but we also want to push for fair treatment of this community in all systems. So we can do that. We can definitely do that by starting here in White Plains. And just to be clear, for example, that means, you know, asking someone what their pronouns are, what they identify as, and, you know, in the process of, if you were having a police interaction with someone, you know, being mindful of this and being knowledgeable in this. Not everyone is knowledgeable in these topics, and also how to treat someone that identifies as a trans person. Any questions or comments on that? And Judy, we definitely wanted to include you in some ideas and how to formalize this recommendation.
Is Judy on the call?
I
I
don't
do
think
not
she's,
believe that she is. She had RSVP that she would be able to be here, but I don't see her on the call.
Okay,
Okay.
I just wanted to touch on, Patrick, these are really good, and it makes me feel good because a lot of the things that you're saying are already in process. We've been very close partners with the Loft, and I was wondering if Judy was on the call because she could speak to that. She has reviewed several policies that in draft stage before they were implemented, just on those topics that you spoke on. So I'm really glad to see that. Can you scroll up one more? There was a couple of things that I didn't want to interrupt you, but we also work with El Centro Hispanos. It's noteworthy that we actually have a liaison officer for the Loft to communicate, so that the Loft has a direct line to the police department, as well as Centro Hispano as a liaison officer, so that they have a direct line. So any issues that come up in the Hispanic community are brought right to the police department, as well as cross-training and partnering with the police department. I'm really glad that you brought those two things up. Can you scroll up a little bit more? I didn't want to interrupt you, but because these are all good topics, but I did have something to say about just about all of them.
mm-hmm.
With community policing, you're absolutely right. It does not work if you have 4 or 5 people in a community policing unit. The way we look at it is that community policing is woven throughout the fabric of the White Plains Police Department, and that's what we try to do. But I like the recommendation and making it more robust. What was right above that? Oh yeah, mental health. You're absolutely right. A peer lead curriculum. We've had, just so you know, in the past we've had Joe Bravo from Westchester Independent Living Center. He's the executive director. I think he may be retiring this year. Come in and provide direct in our in-service training about mental health and disabilities. This past October or September, the chief brought in a young man who was diagnosed with autism to speak to. I'm sorry, not autism. Diagnosed with Tourette's, to speak to the leadership in our supervisors in service training about that. He actually created a video to share with all the members of the police department. So this is in line exactly with what your recommendations are. And mindfulness, we have Calvi Grainsvolt, who is a Buddhist priest up at the temple on North Broadway. So these are all things, good recommendations, all things that we're looking at, and just want to say thank you.
No problem. Yeah,
Can I ask a
and
question?
Mhm.
It's hard. It just, when trans came up, there was some concern that people had heard sometimes they put trans people in cells, not by their chosen gender, but, you know, whatever gender the police officer might assign, and that's very dangerous. We had
Yeah,
concerns.
that's not how we
No,
do it
that's
in White
incorrect.
Plains.
Yeah.
That's not
Okay.
how we do it in White Plains.
Nope.
As a matter of fact, we had Julie Triolo look at our policy and comment and give feedback and edit to make it the best that it could be.
Thank you. I just wanted to check on that. I wasn't an accusation if it sounded like that. But,
No, ma'am, thank you.
Okay.
You know what? Why don't, can you just scroll up one more time? I just want to see what was up, because I want to make sure that we touched on Central Hispano, community policing. Can you scroll up a little bit more? Mental health, and the last one was trauma. Westchester Blue. Okay, great. You're gonna touch base with Westchester Blue. You know what, Patrick? You mentioned all of our partners, so like I was excited to see that these were in your recommendations. Like DCMH, we have come in. As a matter of fact, we have a social worker on staff from DCMH that works with 2 detectives assigned to our mental health outreach unit. We have a close relationship and an MOU with Mental Health Association. All of our biggest friends are on your list, so I'm happy to see that.
Good. So yes, some of that would be just strengthening that relationship and continuing working with those agencies as well. So so thank you, and we're glad to hear that. We did want to. This is kind of a tough topic because it kind of falls under, I guess, training, equipment, technology as well. But we wanted to talk about the 911 call center. So when I went to go visit the police department, I asked to go check it out and learn a little bit more about the center, which was nice and helpful. And we did learn that there are some civilians employed to take 911 calls, and that's good. And we know that there's the general training that you get, right, Captain Spencer, for taking on the 911 calls. I forget what that's called.
They do, I'm not sure exactly how many hours, but there's a course of training in dispatching, call taking, assessing situations. I know they go up to Montour Falls. I'm not sure how often they do it, but I can get that to you, Patrick.
Cap, I think it's once, it's a 5-day course in Montour Falls, 40 hours in order to be certified as a dispatcher. You need to go up there to take that class.
Okay. So one of the things that we wanted to recommend is utilizing the 911 call center for non-immediate emergencies. We wanted to recommend that a crisis call communications floor or crisis call diversion center would be implemented. This is something professionals would be trained to assist in managing 911 calls to diminish the actual physical response from PD patrol units. So the dispatch training is good. Having civilians on that as employees with the PD is good. Those are all really good things. But when it comes to having this perspective of mental health and medical emergencies and situations that come up and arise in the community, we feel like that you could strengthen the 911 call center by implementing more trainings, but also a different culture, promoting a culture to utilize all other nonviolent alternatives in circumstances that do not need military grade entity that utilizes excessive force, such as breaking down a door or shooting someone. These are all matters of excessive force that do not necessarily always need to be used, if not almost ever. So we feel that a lot could be changed within the 911 call department of the PD to actually better assist people that are having an emergency or maybe less of an emergency. So here we've included a article about Dallas, Texas, where they found great success in having social workers work in conjunction with 911 call center. So again, like I said, there were some really good things that we learned about the 911 call center, but some really strong recommendations that we wanted to make. And this was like a tough one because we feel like it kind of falls in our general realm of training and equipment, because it's very much so technology that we use in the call center. But maybe we can partner with some other committees to make sure that this is reflected as well, such as policies and procedures. So I don't want to I need to take a little time for equipment as well. So again, we want to include training topics to be congruent with policies and procedures around equipment, and that there's discussions about trainings around equipment usage, such as things like even less lethal options like spit hoods or body cams or the BOLA wraps. So we wanted to recommend first off, we wanted to say that there's a lot of different types of lethal weapons that we have with the police department. There's less lethal, and then there's non-lethal. We want to address using non-lethal equipment as much as possible rather than lethal equipment. And as far as what's on the inventory, there's both. There's all different types of weapons that you guys have. When it comes to the emergency services unit, we know that there's active shooter situations that can arise. So we feel like that it's appropriate for that vehicle to have some of the more lethal weapons because that's who's responding. But we don't feel like it's necessary for general squad cars to be carrying the lethal weapons that they carry at most times. We were educated on the BOLA wraps. It's a non-lethal form of intervention, but it was expressed to us that felt that it's less efficient. And we talked at length about body cams. But as far as recommendations, we just want to work together with the policy and procedure committee as well to track the data that's collected. So that's kind of more so under technology, and I'll get down to that in a minute. There was something that was brought to our attention in assessing the equipment and future equipment of the White Plains PD. So I've talked at length with this with Chief Castelli as well about purchasing a military grade armored vehicle such as the Lenco Bearcat. And in here I included a link to lencoarmor.com, which can tell you a little bit more about this vehicle. And this is a $200,000 to either $500,000 vehicle or more. This is a very expensive vehicle. Now, we understand that this is part of a potential capital project and a budget assessment that might be something that might be down the line as far as 5 years from now, and that might be even grant funded. We understand all that, but we still want to make a strong recommendation that White Plains PD does not pursue this investment. We recommend that there are alternative procedures and equipment utilization for addressing the mentioned experience that did happen. That's kind of driving the desire to get this vehicle. We highly recommend consulting with the White Plains Police Reform Committee over the next 5 years to coordinate alternatives that not only provide safety to officers, but better utilize the budget for long-term community and police officer safety. We do want police officer safety. I just want to make that clear because we know that that's part of what's driving the efforts to get the car. And we know that situations.
Patrick?
Patrick, can you hear us? Because we can no longer hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Where did I leave off? Did you hear me about the car?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so we were recommending that you work over the next 5 years to coordinate alternatives to purchasing this vehicle and promote a culture and a system that in response to specific situations, whether it's a hostage situation or challenging situations that put police in danger, that there could be potentially a county police vehicle or a multi-municipality police vehicle that could be shared between municipalities like Greenberg, Harrison, Scarsdale, your neighboring communities, instead of having this be a part of the White Plains Police budget and ongoing expenses, that there's other things that are examined. Again, like I said, we understand that this is something that's being looked into as a grant, but why does that have to just be for White Plains? And obviously, if in purchasing a vehicle, there's ongoing expenses such as insurance, gas, maintenance, and these are things that would be ongoing expenses for the White Plains Police Department. And also, if there's some partnership that could be done with like New York State Homeland Security, if we were to do this kind of a purchase, like some other oversight, police oversight that could be partnered with in situations like this, rather than us having our own vehicle.
Hey, Patrick.
Yes.
Just I want to touch on the Lenco thing. I think we had discussed it that most of the Bearcats come from the grants, like the Homeland Security grant, and the reason for not having a universal Bearcat would be just the logistics of it. I mean, number one, if it was just say it was to be parked at the county police academy, you know, if there was a active shooter or something going on where we needed that, that would mean that we'd have to go, you know, over to Valhalla to go get it, to go pick it up, to drive it over to White Plains, and then things like that. That's why it couldn't be universal.
Sorry, did Patrick say that there was an event that triggered the need for this vehicle?
No, I don't think there was we're talking about a need for it. It was just something that was on the, I guess, the list for something that could be purchased down the road, I believe.
I believe Chief
a
Castelli.
situation though, where they were shooting at police, either here or near
It was in
here.
Ardsley. Remember we talked about that? Where
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Harry, are you talking about what I discussed
Yes,
about in
the
Ardsley,
Ardsley
right?
thing.
Right,
Yes.
yep.
Yeah, and I think Chief Castelli signed off, but I believe
I think the chief is trying to jump in.
Can anybody hear me? I've been having problems with my audio. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, chief.
So the theory behind one of these vehicles, I know it looks like a military vehicle, but the premise behind it was that in some type of serious situation, an active shooter, a hostage, a barricaded subject who has high power capability weapons, this could be used as a defensive vehicle where officers could be protected. It could also mainly as a rescue vehicle, and not only for police, for if anybody is in an area where it would be unsafe to rescue them, this would be a vehicle that could rescue anybody. There was an incident many years ago where an officer in Eastchester was shot responding to a domestic incident. And he basically died laying against a tree because by the time it took to get a proper vehicle up, the person in the house was actively shooting at cops. And by the time a proper rescue vehicle or one that offered some protection could get there, the officer succumbed to his wounds. You know, there's other anecdotal information throughout the country and other areas, even in Westchester, where this comes into play. Without a doubt, it is a item that we would hope never have to use, but would be extremely grateful to have it if we ever found ourselves in a situation where we needed to make a rescue of anybody and didn't have the means, or we had to wait for, as I said, the logistics of a county or jurisdictional, where does it go, who operates it, would we be have to come get it? For bigger departments, usually that's the way they would request to have one for their own uses. But without a doubt, we do understand it's a big ask, it's a big ticket item. That's why it's on the capital budgets. And again, these things on the capital budgets can get moved forward or backward depending on need. So if something else big comes up, that 5-year plan, it could just keep getting pushed back. So it's just something we put on the agenda for consideration if the time was ever right for the city to decide we could afford that type of thing. But it's not it has no, I don't know what the word for it is, but maybe offensive capabilities. It's made for defensive and protection is pretty much what it's made for. That can withstand some serious high-powered weapons.
And there's no current vehicle in the possession of the White Plains Police Department that could serve the same function?
We have a armored, believe it or not, a retrofitted armored car that is iffy in actually offering armor protection. I don't even know if I should be saying that, but we got it through a donation and retrofitted as best we could. But in terms of protective and the capabilities that a Lenco type of vehicle would provide us, it's opposite ends of the spectrum.
Chief, sorry to cut you off, but the armored car, if you want to call it, that we have now can only withstand rounds from a handgun, not high-powered rifles. So it would go right through it.
And I don't even know if I would trust it with a handgun, Brian.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Can I just ask?
We call it an armored car in the sense that it was an old armored car, like a bank truck. So it's really not armored.
Chief, can I just ask you something about, I know, as you being the chief, if you guys did purchase that vehicle, it would probably be parked, 24/7 until it's absolutely needed. But like 8, 9, 10, 15 years from now with a new chief, a new captain, how do we know that that vehicle is not going to be parked at every parade, every rally, every, event that White Plains has, just to show the muscle and show this.
I certainly do think that if we were to get one, we would devise a policy on or procedure on it, and that would certainly the uses of it would be included. I think we understand that it's not. We're as you said earlier, we're paramilitary, but we're not military, so we're not looking to parade that thing out there as a show of force. It really is not an offensive thing. It is a defensive and rescue vehicle. So that's what, in my understanding, and if I had my hands in a policy, that's what it would be used as, not as a, as I said, it wouldn't be if we had I don't know what event, but an event that I don't think we would just drive it out there to place it there. Unless there was an objective purpose for it to being there. I also understand, I think Newburgh or somewhere up north just used theirs to parade Santa around. Thinking it was a good idea. And there's a lot of drawback from that. So I sometimes good intentions, unintended consequences. So I get it. But yeah, we wouldn't just have it and then have it at the whim of how somebody wanted to use it. I would like to think there would be coherent policy on procedures on it. And we could draw up of certainly departments that have it already, like we do a lot of times, we take a lot of other established policy procedure, and then we tailor it to what we think our best practice would be.
Okay. So I got to take a little time to go over technology, some technology concerns and recommendations that we had. Again, like this is a really important one to have be congruent with policies, procedures, and also qualifications and recruitment is part of our discussion in this section as well. So when it comes to cameras, drones, and body cams, accessing the recordings and data is going to be imperative. We recommend that a local, county, state, actually that's a little separate. So the cameras and accessing that data is going to be really important for transparency. So I feel like that's going to come up in some of the other subcommittees, even like in the when it comes to like CCRB. So just having that transparency to data, we feel like will be really important. And when it comes to this is a little out of our jurisdiction, I guess you could say, as a subcommittee, but it's something that we talked about at length, and we wanted to, and I spoke about this with Bernie and Wade as well, because we feel like that having a system, a database or registry that tracks police misconduct would be really important to implement. We recommend that there's a local, county, state database registry that can track police misconduct. This could be helpful to protect civilians and other officers from future police misconduct. We drew some of our recommendations from an extensive report put out by Blacks in Law Enforcement of America, because if we can track these significant acts of misconduct and crime, this could be used as a tool for White Plains PD to prevent them from hiring people that are unfit to be a police officer. It could protect the public from other actions that this police officer could commit against people. So we feel like this is a big part of qualifications and recruitment as well, but it's a piece of technology. This is a thing that would have to be created. This is a very similar to people that work in child welfare are familiar with the Justice Center, right? So when you become a social worker or someone that works with children, you get fingerprinted and you get tracked very diligently throughout your career and actions that you commit, whether while you're at work or while you're in the community. So we feel that police should be held to the same accountability as others. So we know that that's, like I said, a little bit out of our jurisdiction, but it's still a piece of technology that we feel like within, the HR department of the PD and within qualifications and recruitment and policies and procedures, that something like this be explored to be implemented. And again,
Also,
it's not.
I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Also, I'm sorry, Patrick. And also, I think we discussed, it would just have a broad reach in terms of benefit, beyond even White Plains, this piece of technology, if it could be implemented. So it would be even more beneficial than we could imagine, because with people calling or trying to check or having access where they can check when a law enforcement officer may transfer or move to another state and want to pursue their career, there's a way to track the performance or if there was anything of significant concern raised in the past.
Yeah, definitely. So we still have some things to add to our recommendations when it comes to equipment. We're definitely going to be recommending the promoted use of the less lethal forms of equipment, and even potentially going more in depth into policies and procedures around things like spit hoods, and further in depth into body cam and drones as well. So we have a little tightening up to do around equipment. But any other questions or comments?
I think you've all done a fabulous job. Thank you.
I agree. You put a lot of work into this, Patrick. Your committee did great, good recommendations. And I agree that you can work with some of the other committees. I know you said something about working with policies and procedures, and that will be a win-win for both committees, you know, to make recommendations. So good job.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your help, and I'll definitely be reaching out to formalize and tighten up these recommendations moving forward.
Right. Thank you.
Do you want me to talk about transparency and accountability?
Is
Yeah.
that, that's the next one, right? Did Katrina, she didn't get on, right?
No.
Okay. All right, so Wade or Nada, do you want to give?
Wade is very capable.
Well, jump in, Nada, whenever, if I missed anything, or if you want to, you know, clear something up. But we don't have our data sheet prepared yet. It's still a work in progress. But one thing that, you know, transparency and accountability is myself, Nada, and Katrina Jackson. One thing that we definitely want to promote or recommend is something that is on everybody's mind. Right now, White Plains Police is doing an excellent job. The dog is barking. Sorry, the mailman's here. You know, White Plains is doing an excellent job right now with their professional standards. They have a detective and a sergeant in the group now that are excellent. I think they're aces. I know both of them very well. But again, 10 years from now, they're going to be there. You know, 20 years from now, they're going to be there. I can think back 20 years in the past when I was on the police force and the professional standards was nowhere near where it is right now. I would have no confidence in them. So as a community, we have to, you know, the people in White Plains don't know the people in professional standards. They don't know the chief as well as the folks in this committee do. So we have to make sure that our recommendations, you know, fit to get us to a place where the community would trust the police department. So one thing we're recommending is a you know, a review board, you know, civilian complaint review board, a third-party review board, just to review the findings of the professional standards department. This way, the community will know that every complaint that goes into the police department and investigated, the findings are reviewed by a third party. You know, someone who's not connected with the police department, someone who's not connected with the complainant. So you know, a nonpartisan third party will review the findings and give it their blessings, or you know, similar to what Albany does, give it the blessings, or maybe have the police department go back and do a little bit more work. But in that third party review board has to have some teeth, and they should you know, should have public access to that third party review board, so people can see what they're doing and the status of anything they're dealing with. We also recommend data on the websites, data meaning arrest data, you know, demographics, who's getting arrested, race, you know, gender of the folks getting arrested, who's getting ticketed, who's getting stopped. I don't believe that data is collected now, but it's going to have to be collected, and it should be somewhere on the public safety website or the City of White Plains website where people can go and take a look. And it not only will give people in the community a sense of, you know, that the police is being fair, or they can actually see some maybe some, you know, some trends, but it'll also get the police agency, the police brass, they can also see if there's any trends, things that they should look at and address and see it in real time. I know they do show the crime stats as far as the number of felony arrests and misdemeanor arrests, but as far as who's getting arrested, who's getting stopped, and on top of that, the folks that are being arrested, is it a police initiated arrest, or is it, you know, are the arrests made because of a complaint filed, you know, to the police? Was it a shoplifter in the you know, in the Westchester Mall, as opposed to a you know, a police observation, you know, just driving around, I saw something that looked suspicious, so I did a stop. So we like to see data, you know, publicly available for the citizens of White Plains to review, and you know, just to make sure that there's no trends or any kind of issues, that things seem to be fair in enforcement. We also like to continue seeing the racial mix-up of the police department. That should also be publicly available. You know, the racial mix-up of the city compared to the racial mix-up of the police department, male, female, and also demographics as far as Hispanic, African American, etc. You know, right now, I believe the police departments are on par with African Americans. I believe they're a little low in the Hispanic numbers, but it's, you know, it's just good that, you know, people can see that so they can have more trust in the police department. They're doing it right. They're doing it right. The body cam, I'm not sure if the body cam has to be turned on for every contact, you know, with the exception of, you know, sexual offenses. Chief or captain, can you just explain when the body cam has to be turned on, you know, as far as a police officer in the field?
Sure thing. So the policy governs, I think it's 13 specific areas that the body cam must be activated. It's always activated in buffering mode, but there are certain, I think it's 13 or 14 different situations where the policy mandates that the police officer activate the body camera. One of the last ones is any other, I believe it says something like any other legitimate police activity. It doesn't say that, like, if police officer Jimmy Spencer saw his friend Wade Hardy on the street and walked up to him and started talking to him, that the police officer has to activate. There is some discretion, and it really speaks to police business being covered by the body camera, not day-to-day interactions.
Okay, so police business, that's good. I like that, police business. So
One of the issues is you can't prescribe every single thing. So the catch-all is any other legitimate police activity.
okay, all right, that's good. Yeah, we just want to make sure that that continues and the officers are adhering to that. If they're not, you know, they're being, you know, addressed. These, I guess, complaint form against police officers. Right now, it's on the website, and I know we've spoken at length about this. You know, it has to be notarized, et cetera. So we're probably going to request that complaint forms not only be on the website, but be available, you know, throughout the city of White Plains at different locations. You know, it could be churches, it could be community centers, et cetera, to file a complaint, and also a process to follow up on your complaint. I mentioned in another call where I work now, if once you file a complaint, you know, file a security incident report, you get a 10-digit number. And when you get that number, you also are asked to create a password. So you could always go back into the system, or you can call in and give that 10-digit code and that password, and you could, you know, access the information on your case, like what the status is. You could also ask questions. You could leave other additional information. So if you file a complaint against a police officer, that, you know, police officer, John Smith is doing ABC every Thursday or every Thursday and Friday, and then you happen to see that officer doing it again, you can actually go back in and go right back to your same complaint by either logging in with the 10-digit code and password and just say, hey, I just saw him do the same thing again. Can you just, you know, somebody get back to me? You could also file a complaint anonymously and still get that 10-digit code and passwords. You could still follow up on it. The police department can reach out to you if they have any questions by submitting questions to that same dashboard. So if you log back in and check, you may see a question that's sent to you anonymously from the police department, you know, for some follow-up information. So that would, you know, that's also going to be one recommendation, that the complaint forms be, you know, universal and be everywhere. And there's a way that the complainant can follow up even if they're anonymous. Let me see. Oh, whistleblower protection. I'm not sure if the policies and procedures has anything to protect whistleblowers. I know we spoke about, you know, active bystander and, you know, just police officers doing the right thing. If they see something that's not appropriate or that's, you know, borderlining on misconduct or is misconduct, and they report it, you know, like everybody knows what's going on in Mount Vernon with the whistleblower. The guy wore a wire and he recorded misconduct by police officers. And, you know, he was a whistleblower. So is there any protection for White Plains police officers if someone in White Plains Police wants to expose some misconduct? on other officers. So there should be something. We're going to recommend that there is a whistleblower, procedure in the policies and procedures. Still looking at my notes here.
Should actually be a state law. Wait,
Yeah, well, we can't. You said it should be or is?
it should be. I think there's something on. I'll have to look at it, but I think for whistleblower protection, it should be stronger. It should actually be a state law, but I'll look at it.
Yeah, if it's not something that White Plains can at least do locally. Nada, did I miss anything?
Oh, that was excellent. Regarding the civilian oversight, Karen on an earlier Zoom with all of us mentioned we don't have to provide all the details of the authorizing legislation for civilian oversight. That will be the responsibility of the Common Council. But what our committee is recommending is that the civilian oversight entity have a physical location, and that the physical location is independent from both the city hall and the mayor's office and the police department, so that people feel this is an independent institution. And we talked about a Dropbox that's locked and sealed, because a person may want their information to be confidential. It should be as least burdensome as possible. Wade mentioned that currently the complaint form needs to be notarized. We're recommending that it should not need to be notarized, so that it's just one less step for a civilian to get something in there. But otherwise, he summarized our conversations very well.
And also, just so everybody knows, the chief supplied us with the stats from, or I guess a summary of this year's complaints against police officers, and I think there were like 19 over the last year, but out of the 19, only like I think 5 or 6 came from the outside. Most of the others were internal, like a boss saw something, or police officer messed up, had an accident, whatever. So numbers are low. So they're not a lot of numbers. It's not like this. I think Albany had a lot more, but we're not seeing 10, 15 per month. The numbers are pretty low. I think it was like 6 or 7 this year that came from from the outside, from people from encounters with the police officers, which is a good thing. Let's hope the numbers stay low.
And also to stress the point when Wade was talking about the data collection, if there is a way that we could see police responding to service calls versus police on their own on patrol noticing incidents. I mean, I don't know, I feel like the public would like to see that breakdown in police activity, responding to service calls versus their own initiated stops.
Now, I think the chief put together that data. I think he shared it with one subcommittee. I'll have to ask him who he shared that data with. Wade, wasn't it your subcommittee that he gave you that data broken down by self-initiated arrests and versus calls for service?
I have to look. I know he sent me a few things. I gotta, to be honest.
You know what he did? He sent it to Katrina. So I'll make sure that it gets out there. But I know he had Sergeant Bizzesto break it down year by year, and when he broke it down, it was self-initiated arrest versus calls for service.
Okay, and but it didn't break down the demographics, just the arrests.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that. Now that you mentioned it came from Katrina. I think it broke down the arrest, but not demographics, because I don't believe he has the demographics broken down anywhere. For
the traffic tickets, he doesn't, because the way we upload our traffic tickets, it has to jive with the state. So they ask for certain demographics, and I don't know the particulars, but I know that we have to send it up in a way that the state can accept it. But for arrests, I think he has that broken down in demographics. Okay. But I'll make sure that I look at it and I send it to you.
All right, thanks. Any other questions?
That was thorough.
All right, great job, Wade. Great job, Nada.
Thanks.
a lot of good recommendations. So, do you have your report ready to give to us, or is it in Katrina's?
Yeah, I'm gonna help Katrina out. We're not finished with it yet as far as the template, the spreadsheet.
Okay,
So we'll have it to you by the middle of this week.
okay. So are you guys still working or are you finished?
We're pretty. I think. No, I think we're pretty good.
I think we're finished.
You're finished?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other committees think they're finished? Okay. All right, so Karen has some of the recommendations that have already been made. And I think it's important that the committee as a whole is in agreement with these recommendations that are being made. And that we all want them as part of the report. Karen's gonna read off these recommendations that we have so far.
All right, so the first set of recommendations actually comes from your subcommittee, Wade, from recruitment, qualifications, and retention. And in regard to recruitment, you are recommending that that the PD continue with current recruitment efforts and try to expand on them where possible through soliciting more assistance from churches, community groups, the school, etc. In regard to civil service exam preparation, the committee is recommending that the city provide test prep for both the written exam and the physical or agility exam, which I believe we do. And this would be to hopefully assist minority candidates and White Plains residents in being hired or recruited. Under the area of qualifications, the recommendation is to take initiatives to qualify more White Plains residents with the hope that more will become police officers. So toward that end, the subcommittee made a couple of recommendations, which we're looking into, giving residents a residential credit of 5 or more points on their exam score, giving the test in 2-year increments rather than 4, and maintaining 2 lists, a resident list and a non-resident list for the exam.
Yeah, I'm not to cut you off, Karen, but I spoke to Chief Costelli, actually emailed me, and to answer a lot of these questions. A lot of these things, because of civil service law, cannot be done.
Right.
They had 2 lists, a resident list and a non-residence list. They would have to just use one. They can't use 2 at the same time. And the residence list is too small to use. If they had a residence list and they had to, if they had 12 openings, the list is just so small, they would probably have to hire people they don't really want to hire. So it makes sense. I guess it's just going to be the onus is just getting more residents to take the test and, to get on a bigger list. They do, when they do hire, they do try to, look for White Plains candidates. If they're in a block of, 90 to 95 and they got, 50 people in that block, they try to pursue the White Plains candidates first. But if they have only a White Plains residents list, the list would be too small to probably, it'd be too small to fill a 2-year, 4-year hiring requirement.
So we're gonna take that recommendation out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, Wade, if you, given the feedback that you got on the subcommittee recommendations, if your subcommittee plans to meet again and maybe fine tune these a little bit further.
Yeah, let me do that. Let me do that.
Okay.
This way we can talk to the chief again, just to maybe have some more other ideas that might work, because this is what we recommended, but it just seems like with civil service law, it's going to be a huge challenge. So we might be able to figure something else out.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Wade.
Wow.
Get some snow going.
Huh.
Snow. Look behind you. Community engagement was the other one.
Okay.
Reverend Challenger is not on the call. He
I thought
was,
he was. Oh, he's
yeah,
not?
he was,
Okay.
but he must have dropped off.
He only has a few,
So,
right?
what's that?
He only has a few, right?
He has a few, so they were things, they included like increasing community engagement activities with the mayor's youth council, identify groups and or individuals that are stakeholders for an active community engagement program. The PD should consider allotting funding specifically for community engagement activities. And White Plains should initiate positive community reports. This had been done at one time and was well received. Positive community reports by police officers identify positive interactions with community members. These reports should be shared up the chain of command as appropriate. And what this does is it sends a message both internally and externally that the department values positive, meaningful, and consistent interactions by their police officers with community members. Those are the high level recommendations, yeah.
All right, so that's what we have so far. Policies and procedures are still working on fine tuning there, so we don't need to go over theirs right now. But before we go, I was wondering if Captain Spencer could talk to the group a little bit about what I learned yesterday at a meeting, the sanctity of life. Captain Spencer, are you willing to talk a little bit about that?
Janice. So on yesterday's meeting,
This is the policies and
it was
procedures.
policies and procedures subcommittee meeting. Just observing the conversation and the intention that the subcommittee wanted to move the department in a certain way, and instead of looking like Wade described it, instead of going in the weeds, look at changing policy procedure with like a 30,000-foot view, and listening to them describing what their intentions were. It reminded me of a webinar that the chief had assigned to me to be on back in the summer with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and they spoke about this idea of sanctity of life, and everything that the subcommittee was talking about made me think about this webinar and made me think about sanctity of life. And for anyone who wants to read further into it, you can Google United States Conference of Mayors, Sanctity of Life, and it'll come up. But just in a nutshell, it says that at the core of police officers' responsibility is the duty to protect all human life and physical safety. They go into emphasizing the sanctity of life in the areas of use of force, the area of duties to intervene and provide first aid. They speak about de-escalation. They speak about crisis intervention. And I think these are all areas that White Plains, the White Plains Police Department is good at and has good intentions to. I think that the way we have all of these things prescribed in our policy may appear to be a little disjointed if you're looking at the policy, because the policy was made for police and not really for outsiders looking at the policy. So I think that if we could codify sanctity of life in one area with an overarching theme in our policy procedure, it would reinforce the commitment that the department has to community policing and sanctity of life, and two, it would be able to show the community that this is the way, this is our mission, and this is the spirit of what we're doing in providing police services to the folks that live, work, and play in White Plains. So I just brought it up so that everyone on that subcommittee could look at it. It just made sense to me listening to the conversations, and it's something that I offered for consideration.
And I thought it was a great idea. And I'm also encouraging everyone to look at that website. Did you put that on there?
I did. I just added it to the chat.
I think
everybody.
all the subcommittees should look at that. I think it's going to be really, really helpful.
Well,
I
I
just
love
want- I
the
just want-
expression, and I'm wondering, Captain Spencer, if we can incorporate that into the mission statement. I've just sent it to Karen. Maybe she can share with everyone. What's currently on your website doesn't mention anything about sanctity of life, and I think that would be fabulous if we can tweak the mission statement of the White Plains Police Department.
That's going to be one of our recommendations.
Again, I have to say that these are things that we are already doing in White Plains. It may appear disjointed when you look at our policy, when you look at our training, but when you put everything together, it's the spirit of what we do. The downfall is that I don't think we have it codified anywhere that's not really disjointed in a unified way, saying that this is what we do.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have, but if you haven't, I think it's a good idea to look at that, read that. I also want to point out another recommendation that Wade made, and that is that the policies and procedures, the recommendations that we make now, that we revisit them every few years. As a committee, we have not decided how many years that would be, or have we, Wade? I think you said 7, 5 to 7.
I think I said 5 years, but yeah, I think because Governor Cuomo's executive order is why we're here now. But 10 years from now, this may never happen again. Never happened before. But we can make a recommendation that White Plains will do this every 5 years.
Right.
Every 6 years.
What about an ongoing role? Not maybe not necessarily like heavy ongoing, but some ongoing role and sort of oversight of the implementation of this and just following up.
Yeah,
As opposed to waiting for 5 years, when we could be sort of reinventing the wheel and kind of catching up and with what's going on, because it would be probably new people. And
I see that, Harriet, as the function of the civilian oversight body, that they have to be doing this regularly, and that's part of their mission and purpose. That's how I see it.
Yeah,
so it's more than just reviewing complaints. It would be sort of
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And one of the things that I will plan to do is I'm sure you've seen it, we have a web page now for this police reform committee. And as the recommendations get finalized, we would certainly post those recommendations, make them public. And also we can keep the website updated in terms of this is in progress, this is completed, this is, not yet started, whatever it may be. But I think the web page, the web presence, would be maintained and would be kept up to date. And how that works in conjunction with perhaps a citizen oversight board, I guess has yet to be worked through, but that's another means by which the public could be kept up to date on the recommendations and the status of them. So just throw that out there as well.
That's good. And I mean, this is our first time doing it, but when we make our recommendations, it goes to this Common Council. What if they say, yeah, 1 is good, 2 is good, 3 we don't like, 4 we don't like, 5 is good, 6. What happens to the ones they don't like? Did they just go away forever? Or
No, if we get to them with enough time, which is what we're trying to do, they can tell us what they don't like about it. We can come back to the table and see how we can tweak it, modify it, or maybe we can't do anything about it. But that's why we'd like to get to them, so we have enough time to see which way they're leaning with these recommendations. If they're good with some of them, we don't have to do anything. If they're not good, we can come back to the table and see how we want to modify it.
I think one of the big issues will be for the recommendations that carry budget implications, you know, those, they will have to look at those in relation to the budget. And that's not to say that they would automatically dismiss a recommendation, but they might just, you know, it might need a little bit more time for implementation, that kind of thing. So, so the budget issue is not going to come into play with every recommendation, certainly. It'll come into play for some of the recommendations, I would imagine. And the council would need to, you know, discuss that in the sort of the larger realm of the city budget. But again, I'd make no suppositions on how that discussion may turn out. You know what I mean?
But we will get a couple of 2 chances to meet with them, right?
2 chances?
To meet with the council.
Why do you say
Well,
that?
we'll get an opportunity to give our recommendations, and if they don't approve them, we do get a chance to come back to them.
You know what, we haven't really decided
Mhm.
how, once the committee is ready
Mhm.
to present its final report, how that'll be set up to go. You know, I think that it was a little bit, it's premature at this point, but I mean, I would like to give you guys the opportunity to have a, you know, bit about a back and forth with
Okay.
them,
Mhm.
so that they can ask questions of you,
Mhm.
you know, and you can speak more to your process, why you're making certain recommendations, what was driving it, et cetera, what you learned.
Okay.
I think that would inform everything. Yeah.
All right, so we got some good recommendations. Karen and I are going to be meeting with each subcommittee in the upcoming week.
Or, yeah,
In the
having,
next in the next week to 10 days, we're gonna meet with each subcommittee, and we're gonna start finalizing our recommendations. So if you need to meet to get your recommendations finalized, this is a good time to do it this week. And Karen will reach out to you and see when you're ready to meet with us, so we can start finalizing things.
Mhm.
And
And I believe Karen said yesterday she's going to do a one sheet with all the recommendations so we can see each other's, because some committees may have in common recommendations.
overlap.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
She's working on that.
Nice. Just want to remind you that what you mentioned yesterday, Casey. So you thought it was a bad dream or something.
I was thinking that's what it was.
Does anybody have any questions that they want to bring up? Any issues, concerns?
You know, our next meeting is scheduled for next Monday, the 21st at 7 o'clock in the evening. Do you want to keep that on the calendar for now and then just be in touch with everybody to
Yeah, let's keep that on
confirm?
the
Keep it
calendar
on
for
the
now.
calendar? All right.
Okay,
Sure.
Okay.
And,
Thank you, everyone.
maybe at that time,
Is evening the optimum time for everyone?
Not for me, but I think for some other members who haven't been able to attend lunchtime, they might prefer that.
We tried to split it up a little bit.
are you going to be able to be there, Nada?
It's on my calendar, thank you.
Okay, does anybody have, and nobody else has any other questions? No other issues?
Janice, it's Marie.
Hi, Maria.
Before we break, can we talk about like when our subcommittee is going to meet next and how?
I'm sorry, can you talk about what?
When our subcommittee is going to meet and how we're going to do it.
Okay, is Bernie on the call?
Bernie is.
Oh, does that mean the rest of us can log off?
Yeah.
If you want.
Okay, so if you're done, everybody have a good day. See you next week.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Bernie,
Bye, guys.
Hello.
okay, Marie had a question.
Yeah, so Bernie brought up that he was a little uncomfortable meeting in person
Mhm.
this week. And I'm also gonna remind everybody that I think we're supposed to have a big storm on Thursday.
Yeah, Wednesday night into Thursday.
Yeah. So maybe we should keep it to a Zoom. It's, you
Okay.
know, I'll go either way, but whatever the majority decides.
Okay,
Yes, I said I would prefer to have a Zoom conference. I think that we can be, unless there's something very specific that we need to accomplish in meeting face to face that would not be accomplished via Zoom. But if it's anything about just how we feel about being in Zoom, I'd prefer to meet via Zoom.
okay, then I guess Zoom it is. It's just that I just thought we got more accomplished, or we could get more accomplished when we see each other.
We
But,
do, we
you know,
do.
But understanding that the weather could be an issue and the virus is concerning, so I get it, you know. But I do think we need to just meet and have an agenda and focus on recommendations. So we do, you know, I don't know, do you guys want to wait till Sunday or do you want to do that sooner?
I'm available at any time we feel that we need to schedule it, whether it be Sunday or before. It's just that I think that now we have to wait for Karen. Sorry, the pressure of Karen, but I thought Karen's going to hand us something, and then at that point we'd be more available to head towards finishing up our recommendations.
I don't know if
Does
we
that
need to
make
wait
sense?
for Karen to meet.
Excuse me?
I'm gonna be working on it this week.
Mhm.
And I hope that, you know, my hope is that by the end of the week,
Mhm.
really realistically, not sooner, but by the end of this week, I can have a draft to show you, a first draft. But I agree. I don't know that you,
I don't
if you
think
have
we
other
need-
things to discuss, I don't know that you need to
I don't
know.
think we need to wait for Karen to discuss our recommendations.
So I thought that Karen was putting together the list of our recommendations. And if we had something that was outstanding or different than what she was saying, how would that be reflected?
Well, I don't think we discussed all our recommendations.
No, I think Karen was gonna come up with, you know, a basic outline for us to start
Right.
off with.
Whichever we feel, yeah, we could get together, whatever way we feel we need to.
Wait, is Merlene here?
Marlene is on.
Okay, because I know she was the one who wanted to meet in person.
Yeah. Like was said
and-
previously, we do more work. We've accomplished more in person rather than Zoom. I feel like on Zoom, we tend to go into these really long tangents, and then before we know it, it's 12 o'clock. For me, it was also working on the format for some of the things that don't exist in the black and white in the policy and procedures. So getting the correct wording and making sure that it's follows whatever the outline is and things like that.
And
I mean-
and so is there anything that we could send to each other even before, say, for example, if we had the meeting on Sunday again, but is there anything we need to send back and forth, or things that we feel could be, should or could be included that we might not have had the conversation about or finalized on? And then we could put that into an agenda of things that we specifically know we need to cover.
We could try, yeah, we could try to do that. I mean, if we want to meet, if we really want to do it in person, I mean, maybe Wednesday before the storm is gonna hit.
That would be during the day because it's predicted for the late afternoon.
Right, yeah, during the day would be okay, but you know,
I
again,
didn't know that there was a storm coming prior to me making the suggestion. So for people's safety and just realistically, I don't get off of work until around 5-6 o'clock. So I'm assuming that's when the storm is supposed to start.
Yeah, so
Oh.
Wednesday's good.
So
So,
I'm open to the meeting.
Yeah, I actually have a really.
okay, so
full
Wednesday's
day on
not good. Can we
Wednesday.
do a Wednesday call? And could we all start sending in our recommendations?
Yeah.
So we have something to work off of?
Mhm.
So if we, and I don't know, Bernie, how you feel about that, but I
What was
think,
that? What was that again? Excuse me, could you repeat that? I didn't quite hear the whole thing.
I think you were leading to the fact that you wanted everyone to send in their recommendations to you so that we have them in front of us when we meet and we can just read over them, see if we want to go with them, see or not?
Yes. And,
Okay.
and in addition, can I say that maybe if we're going to choose Sunday, that we try to take the time to complete what we need to complete and not, if possible, not have to stick to an hour and a half time frame. If we could say if we're going to meet, that we'll meet until we can just about finish reviewing what we need to review.
Well, I think that depends on everyone's schedules.
Yeah,
Do we
I'm
want to
just-
wait till
that's- I'm
Sunday?
just- I'm
No, I
asking.
think we should get it in on Wednesday, if we can have a meeting on Wednesday evening. Is that a problem?
Wednesday evening, I think it'll be snowing.
So if we could stay at home and do Zoom
Oh,
at
okay.
Yeah.
home.
I'm available for Wednesday evening
Yeah.
also.
And we could do Wednesday and Sunday.
Yes,
I
I'm
mean, is that too
available.
much?
I think that's a good idea, Janet.
Okay, so we can do Wednesday and Sunday, and Karen will set that up for us, and we could all start sending in our recommendations, and Bernie can give us each time to read our recommendations, and we can, as a group, decide whether we think that's okay or not. And we need the two attorneys on so they can, help us. So Wednesday and Sunday.
So Sunday at 10:30 and Wednesday,
Wednesday, what time, guys?
You want to do it early evening? 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7?
Well, so Merlene said, what time is it good for you, Merlene, on Wednesday?
30 is good for me.
What time?
6:30.
Okay.
That's
I'm-
good.
I'm available for 6:30 Wednesday.
Okay, we gotta check with Richard, but 6:30 is good for me.
Okay.
So let's come on Wednesday with our recommendations. Let's come on Wednesday with our recommendations, and they don't have to be specific to any of those topics. They can be just recommendations after listening to everybody talk today, after listening to Captain Spencer, after, listening and reading and looking at other organizations and what they put out. Let's bring our recommendations to the table. We can do that on Wednesday, and we can meet again on Sunday.
All right, sounds good.
Sounds good.
I'll send it out.
All right, guys.
Oh, wait, when you guys are emailing me, please make sure you're using the merleneslatercenter.org email address. I'm getting emails to 2 different locations.
I'm
So it-
sorry. I'm sorry.
I'll just make sure I send that out in the group to make sure you use the one. The other one doesn't come up as frequently, so sometimes I'll miss messages.
Okay, so just send it to the one at the Slater Center.
Merlene@slatercenter.org.
Yes.
Thank
Karen,
you.
you've been using the right one all along.
Oh, good. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day, and see you Wednesday at 6:30.
All right, sounds good. Bye-bye, everybody.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, bye,
All right,
guys.
thank you.
Bye.
Okay.